While some of the biggest names in gaming keep releasing broken, unfinished products and asking for our patience, Crimson Desert has been out for a bit over a month, and it exposes everything wrong with the AAA industry. Crimson Desert isn't just another game. It holds a mirror reflecting everything wrong with how these major studios make games. The game launched as a gorgeous, ambitious, janky mess, embodying many of the problems we've all come to expect. But what came after was patch after patch, fixing things that were wrong, listening to the players' feedback, and adding things people weren't even talking about. This is something we haven't seen in a while with AAA games. By this time, maybe we would have seen maybe 2 updates. But this is something else. They've been rolling them out faster than I could bowl a strike. They've been relentless when it comes to accountability and have been charging full speed to earn the trust that was lost. It puts the entire AAA industry to shame because some of these updates feel like they would have taken months to implement. But that's because they've been putting first something some of these bigger companies seem to have forgotten about: the players. I'ma be real, I love me a good AAA game, but these past few years, it's kind of felt like a toxic relationship. The content and business cycle, it's predictable. A game gets announced with a nice cinematic trailer that looks way too good to be true. And normally, it is. Years of hype follow, promising innovation and revolutionizing ideas. Then launch day hits. And after we spend that sweet money on the premium tag, we see it unfinished, buggy, and sometimes rather empty, having us look around and asking if anyone even playtested this game. So we wait for that giant patch that always comes after a release, and then realize the real game is just filled with microtransactions, because apparently all the cool gear can't be earned while playing the game. They have to be locked behind a paywall. They made sure to take those out for us just to pull more money from us. And we think this way because we've seen it over and over again. Ambitious titles collapsing under their own debt. Live service games that are dead on arrival. The industry is just littered with corpses and cautionary tales. Games that stand as monuments to corporate greed and mismanagement. And that doesn't matter because if anything goes wrong, they'll just lay off studios and developers, then announce they somehow increased revenue, completely ignoring the game they now essentially killed because no one's working on it. This whole industry has accepted that mediocrity they are producing, because these shareholder-driven machines care more about their quarterly earnings than that creative integrity. Development costs have ballooned, leading to games that have ditched innovation, pushing their genres further, to games that feel safe and oftentimes soulless, with less to do. Yeah, we may get better graphics, but recently, the content feels more checklist-oriented. But that brings us to Crimson Desert, a game from the South Korean developer Pearl Abyss, known mostly for notoriously grindy MMO Black Desert Online. When I first heard about Crimson Desert, this game looked frickin' incredible. But when something this ambitious gets announced, the first thought is this is just too good to be true. But that almost feels intentional. Our first instinct isn't excitement, it's skepticism. We become cynics, and for good reason. The last decade is a graveyard of open-world ambition. Games that promised us living, breathing worlds. Well, they gave us broken, unfinished, under-delivered, or just straight-up scams. But what if this time it's true? What if a studio finally committed to a single-player premium game with no microtransactions in a gameplay-rich world on day one? Well, when it launched on March 19th, the initial answer seemed to be kind of. When Crimson Desert launched, their reaction was polarizing. On one hand, the game was an absolute spectacle. Built on Pearl Abyss's own Black Space engine, the world of Pywell was breathtaking. It was huge, a seamless world filled with jaw-dropping views, dense forests, and bustling cities that you could explore with no loading screens. But under that beautiful surface, the game was flawed. It was, in many ways, the perfect example of an overambitious AAA launch. The problems were immediate. Let's start with the most basic thing in any game, the controls. Players found the combat confusing and frustrating. The game pushed a complex system of parrying, grappling, and weapon swapping, but was held back by input lag, missed button presses, and a control scheme that felt totally counterintuitive. Simple things like needing to hold down a button forever just to allow your horse to sprint, or just the fact that so many actions were instilled on one button made for many frustrating scenarios, or performing the wrong actions at the wrong times. Boss fights felt broken and unfair because of brutal difficulty spikes. Then there was a story. The narrative following the protagonist Clift on his quest to rebuild his mercenary group, the Greymanes, was described by many as a mess. For some, the sheer amount of systems was overwhelming, and reviewers said it tried doing too much without having any of it land. With a Metacritic score hovering in the high 70s, many reviewers who expected a polished story like Baldur's Gate 3 rated it harshly, to me feeling like they missed the point of its systemic depth. The Steam reviews at launch were mixed. By all accounts, Crimson Desert seemed destined to become another cautionary tale. A beautiful, ambitious failure that only a fair bit of players would have given the time of day. Another AAA game tossed into the wild before it was ready. I will say though, I saw a lot of players saying that they would continue to give it a chance because of how revolutionizing the game was, and if they saw updates. And I'm glad they did, because on the other side of that coin were the ones who absolutely loved it. Now, the controls may have been wonky, but as you got used to them and gained more abilities, it felt like you were learning something new. As your combos built longer, so were your new attack patterns. Those tedious chores of side quests, they felt rewarding because there was almost always a reason to finish them with some sort of reward waiting for you. The story may not be the greatest, but it was a nice guiding path that could lead players to the different regions when they felt ready to progress. And lastly, the immersion is unlike anything we've seen in a long while. You could get lost doing the littlest of things. You have people who stayed in Hernan for over 60 hours just exploring and discovering every secret that's been hidden away. These in-depth systems, the UI and all of its menus, they're certainly daunting, there's a lot of it. But the more you look into them, how deep and big, it almost showed endless possibilities. When you made it far enough, you could ride a dragon, fly a jetpack, control a mech, explore those sky islands, rebuild your settlement, arm wrestling. There's so much to do and get lost in. Games like these are not for everyone, and I saw a lot of people trying to iterate that as much as possible. I knew what I was getting into when playing this game. A game that would be a beautiful and broken mess. But there were quite a lot of flaws with Crimson Desert. You can't argue there wasn't. That would just be ignorant. But after seeing everything Prolobis has done, I'm surprised at how much they've been adding and changing. I mean, it sucks that it feels so rare when a studio actually listens to feedback and delivers. I came from Destiny where that game became a literal toxic relationship. When it came to issues, they would fix some of them, then in the next season, somehow the exact same problems occur, just in another way. It felt like the community was constantly ignored or just not rewarded for how much defense they played on Bungie's behalf. Especially when they broke free from Activision and were still making mistakes. The amount of excuses players were making for Bungie was shocking, but never once were they rewarded for it. And look where it's got them. A game that is literally dying because they put all of their effort into Marathon, a niche extraction shooter. But here with Crimson Desert, the developers are listening, and it's a nice feeling, ain't it? Just like how it'd be a nice feeling to hit that subscribe button, am I right? Yeah? Okay, that was cringe. Most AAA developers would have put out a statement, maybe a long blog post promising a roadmap, a commitment to their future updates, and a bunch of corporate buzzwords about listening to feedback. Then they would have gone dark for a month before dropping a tiny patch and adding a new cosmetic to purchase. Pearl Abyss didn't do that. Instead, they unleashed a full lot of updates. Since the release, they have added already, I think, 12 updates to the game. They are treating this single-player game like an MMO, and I can't be happier to see this style of management. The developers targeted player frustrations that were highly prevalent, like the small inventory, the clunky combat controls. Some bosses were retuned, and now they released an actual difficulty slider to the game. These updates are constantly changing the experience, but most importantly, in our favor. They added features players hadn't even thought to ask for, like a weird bug where a pet cat would stay on your shoulder forever. Instead of just removing it, the developers saw players liked it and added a new item to let the cat stay on your shoulder longer. It just shows how much they are actually paying attention to the players and their interests. And with all this, they were able to sell over 5 million copies and shift the Steam reviews from mixed to very positive. And I don't see this momentum ending anytime soon. But in doing so, they're making everyone else look lazy and just completely out of touch. And maybe you're asking, why does any of this matter? It's because Crimson Desert, with its flawed launch and its rapid evolution, serves as an example of what the AAA publishing model is capable of, but what they're choosing not to do. It exposes the excuses that we've been fed for years just as that, excuses. We all know they called Baldur's Gate 3 an anomaly. But then time and time again, we keep getting games that blow expectations and make their lies and excuses bear no weight, showing us they can't hide anymore, giving us the bare minimum. For years, when we complain about buggy launches, we were told that modern games are just too complex. Pearl Abyss, with a massive, complex open-world game on multiple platforms, just proved that frequent, meaningful updates are not only possible, but it's a good way to build goodwill. They treated their launch as the starting line for the conversation with their players. When we complain about a lack of content or shallow gameplay loops designed to funnel us towards microtransactions, we're told this is essential or that we just don't know what we want. But then you have indie teams who come in and fill those gaps for us, giving us exactly what we've been asking for. Look no further than Windrose, that just came out and completely blew away the scene. They want to build a game that they are passionate about, but one that overlaps with what players want. They were aimed to be a live service free-to-play game, an MMO, but didn't think they would be able to keep up with the content cycle, and instead shifted to a buy-to-play PvE adventure. Sounds pretty similar, right? Because that's exactly what Crimson Desert did. Crimson Desert was aimed to be an MMO, but made this ambitious shift to a single player and has now given us exactly what we've been demanding from Bethesda for years. Crimson Desert launched so packed with content and overlapping systems that it was overwhelming, but it offered a vast world with a staggering number of things to do. It had flaws, but no one could call it empty or a cash grab. Its focus was on providing a dense sandbox that you could get lost in and create your own journey. Pearl Abyss saw the shift in the industry and what players wanted and turned an MMO-sized game into an almost endless journey. But it also shows that they have been listening to the players. In the past few years, you could start seeing a pattern in player preferences. More people have been moving away from the live service always online model, and that's because people are getting fatigued, myself included. Or it's just straight up demanding too much from us, especially when there are so many live service games all trying to keep you on their platform. Crimson Desert's production and decision making exposes that rot at the core of the AAA machine. It suggests that the problem isn't that making games are too hard, but that many publishers are just too arrogant to listen, too slow to react, and just too greedy to prioritize the player experience over their short-term profits. They've built a culture where launching a broken product is an acceptable business model, confident that a small team will eventually be tasked with cleaning up the mess long after these suits have cashed in their checks. But while the publishers are happy with the short-term wins, it sours what they can receive in the long run when players don't trust or just aren't forgiving anymore. When it comes to business, trust is your most valuable asset, and with how most AAA publishers try to gaslight us to tell us what we want, there are these studios that see that opening, swoop in and deliver what it is we actually want, and build that relationship of trust that is far better than these rushed deliveries. Crimson Desert launched with many of the problems you'd see with AAA, but they really turned things around in no time, showing us exactly what we could get if publishers and studios embraced the feedback from their players. Look, it's not a perfect game, but it might just be one of the most unique experiences we get until GTA 6. Anyways, let me know what you think. What do you think about the current state of AAA? Have you been playing Crimson Desert and enjoying it? I myself haven't played too much of it yet, and that's because I just finished up Hollow Knight. But since I finished it, I think I got a lot more time to explore Pywell and see what's hiding in Hernan, because I see myself being in there for the next month. Because this was my most anticipated game of 2026, and I fully expect to be sucked in for a long while, even if it takes me till the end of the year to, come close to discovering everything. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you can see more of my content. I try to cover news on the gaming industry, games that I'm looking forward to, and studios and games that deserve the praise. Anyways, that's it from me. Have a nice day. Go play some games. Peace.